I loved the movie. Absolutely wonderful. I have to tell you though, the beginning, I was a little shocked. I had no idea. I mean, it was violent. It was like scary violent. I'm like, oh my God, what am I watching? And then like 2 seconds later, it's like, oh, okay, this is good. Tell me, you wrote the film, is that correct?
So Daniel and I both co-wrote,
okay.
co-directed, yes, co-edited, co-shot.
Co-everything.
Just about. Co-costume, co-makeup, co-lighting.
Yeah. So tell me why you chose to have that kind of a punch at the beginning with a 180 turn.
Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
Thank you.
One, to draw people in, I guess.
Okay.
Also, because the film is sort of this comedic search for some guy that doesn't exist. It turns out he does exist and he's a bad guy. We just want everyone to know how bad he was from the get-go.
Yeah, it's all about stakes. It's all about knowing in advance, by the time this stuff starts getting serious, you already know how serious it is.
Right.
You know? And we don't have to re-explain as it goes on because, once you guys start finding out, okay, so Bohan's real and he's a badass and, we've seen it. So these guys are in trouble.
Tell our listeners or viewers a little bit about that whole confusion of the names.
Well, it's based on a true story, actually. A friend of Dan's.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Tell the story, Dan.
Look, exactly as it appears in the film. My friend was snooping in his girlfriend's phone, saw messages from somebody called Siobhan, assumed it was a guy named Sayo Bohan, and confronted her angrily about it. And when he told me that, I just thought that was the most hilarious thing ever.
Oh my God.
Because when Dan told me the story, I was like, that sounds like the start of a buddy comedy.
Yeah. Because as he was telling me, he was saying Sayo Bohan. I'm like, in my brain, I was like, sure, it's not just the Irish name Siobhan. Like, that's a pretty common name,
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of the more common of the uncommon names,
Yeah, that's right. And since then also, on telling the story, I've heard lots of people say, I had the same thing. I had no idea that was the name Siobhan. Yeah. So it's a common error people make with the name Siobhan, which is spelled weird, Siobhan.
Yeah.
Right.
There's another way you can spell it too, I think. There's an I in there and maybe you can get some other Celtic.
Irish,
that's right.
The real badass, as you said, Mr. Bohan, we'll call him. He actually had like this redeeming quality that he actually listened to women. How cool is that? Who came up with that idea and why?
I don't know where that came from.
I can't remember.
No?
No, is there a story behind that? Or are we just channeling our...
Well, I mean, ultimately, we wanted Nicholas to learn something from Sayo Bohan from his journey at the end.
Yeah.
And one of those things was if he just learned to, listen and communicate with his fiancée, this whole thing never would have happened.
Yeah, that's right. He's this gangster guy who's got all these girls lying around his house. Is it because he's, giving them free drugs? And no, it's not. It's because he listens to them and they really respect him. So it's just kind of playing against tropes as well whenever we can.
Any difficulties when you were filming? Any glitches that came up that maybe were happy accidents?
Everything was a compromise. So, we had no money, we had no crew, and so it was basically, okay, we're shooting tonight, and we don't necessarily have all the right people or all the right props or the right locations, so wherever we are, whoever we're with, and whatever we have is going to be in the scene. So, it's kind of built around that.
That's right.
It kind of happens backwards to how it would normally happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely,
It was like a sign that this was meant to be.
Yeah, well, especially considering that the taxi element was kind of one of the last things we put into the script. Originally, it was just two friends in a car. A guy had gotten his friend to drive him around. Okay. And then it was only because we were thinking, look, you're going to see so many cars on the road in this, it would be good if the car stood out in some way.
Okay.
And that's when we thought, well, a taxi would stand out. And then eventually we backed up and thought, well, then it should just be a taxi. It shouldn't be friends.
And it shouldn't be friends. They don't know each other.
It should be a guy just... And that way they can learn each other's stories from each other, and then that would make the tale all the richer. So
again, there's a whole lot of effects through the film that you don't actually notice. In fact, my torso,
correct,
ended up on Nicholas, the main character's head, for the final scene, the final showdown with Sayo Bohan and Trevor and Nick. This is the problem when you wear too many hats.
Yeah,
continuity slipped.
Because we filmed the entire scene in the end without a jacket on.
Nicholas
he's had on the entire film.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, Brian put the jacket on. We filmed him with the jacket on, and
in
then
the
we
same
motion
spot,
tracked
with the same...
that onto Blair for the entire scene.
Yeah. that was a big lesson, actually.
Yeah, it
how
was.
much you can get away with in film.
So true.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, and even right down to things like my role in the film. I play a small cameo as
With
the
the psychotic driver.
guy who follows him in the car and tries to smash the car at the end. Yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason in the script, that's a middle-aged woman in an SUV. But we couldn't
do that,
ask a middle-aged woman to hang off cars and stuff because I mean we didn't have a stunt actor. We didn't have
Yeah.
safety precautions or anything. So the only person we could ask to do that is ourselves.
Right.
And we'd already shot Brian's cameo, so it was just it had to be me. So.